Hi everyone and welcome to episode 70 of the ITSM crowd. We've got a brilliant panel today and we're going to be talking about continuity, business transformation, everything that we've all been thinking about in the current situation. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask our panel to introduce themselves. So Karen, if I can start with you, please.
Absolutely, great to be here, Claire, thanks. So I'm Karen Ferris, as it says there. I work out of Melbourne, Australia, originally from Liverpool in the UK. Started off as an IT service management consultant, which I still am, but my passion is really around organisational change management, so the people side of change. So I work with organisations around leadership and transitioning people and resilience in the workplace.
Thank you very much. And James.
Hi there again. So James Gander, as you can see, work out of Auckland in New Zealand, and I focus on service management across the enterprise and IT operations teams, helping them to drive improvements and deliver value to the organisation.
Thank you very much. And Rob?
Yeah, good evening, my time. I'm based in Hamilton in New Zealand, and my focus with my business is around organizational efficiency, operational efficiency through lean thinking. So it's generic right across all parts of an organization. And I'm also a certified Lego serious play facilitator as well. So using that really for strategy and workshopping complex questions for organizations.
Brilliant, thank you. And Aprill.
Hi, I'm Aprill Allen, and I'm the Managing Director of Knowledge Bird, and I focus on knowledge management and helping service desks and other teams get value from their knowledge bases that hopefully they're already using. And if they're not, then I encourage them to do so.
Thank you very much. So you'll notice we've got a geographical commonality. We've got Australia and New Zealand represented on today's session. They're all of our guests are in fact collaborators on the Good Guidance Partnership. And Aprill, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that as well, please?
Sure, Claire. Well, Karen and I are both in Melbourne. We live not too far from each other. And Rob and James and also Paul, who isn't on our call today, they're all in New Zealand. And Karen and I have known James for quite a number of years through the ITSMF and also Paul. And we met Rob through James recently when we started talking about trying to work together. And so we formed this group, and we find that there's a lot of organisations where our various combinations of our skill sets is complementary to getting the outcome that customers want to achieve. So we thought we may as well try and get out there with some package deals.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, my name's Claire Agutter. I'm the host for today's session, and you can ask our panel questions live using YouTube comments. So if you are watching this live, by all means, please do put your questions into the YouTube comments panel. We can pick that up and we will answer it while we're doing the broadcast. So today's topic is kind of roughly continuity. James and I were chatting a while back and this came up. Tell us a little bit more about what's on your mind in this area at the moment, James.
Well, I don't know if anybody out there is aware, but there's been this little bug going around. Quite a bit of an impact on people and organisations. It's become apparent that everybody has had to change their way of working. Excuse me. Some organisations have struggled more than others. It hasn't been easy for any of them, really. But it's been interesting watching how organisations handle the changes, how people have been managing the change, because different people cope in different ways. And then as we come out of it, which in New Zealand, we're starting to come out the other end now, and it's how are those organisations going to carry on with that change? How are people going to cope with, I'm not going to say the new normal because I hate that phrase. But,
Me too.
but how are people going to cope with the potential differences that there's going to be out there? And that continuity, whether it's business continuity, IT service continuity, people continuity, thinking continuity, this is an ideal time to start really talking about it and seeing how we can help organisations to cope with it.
And I'll bring you in at this point, Karen, because I know a lot of your specialism is about organisational change management. What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that really worries me is that new normal, because there is no normal. And as you know, James rightly said, everyone is going through this differently. And we've had a slogan here, we're all in this together, which is another cringe. Because I go, well, we're all trying to sail through the same storm, but some have got boats and ships, some have got dinghies, some have got rafts, and some are just swimming against the tide. So everyone's dealing with it differently with their own concerns and whatever. And then we're getting organisations, and we've heard Twitter recently, everybody's going to stay working from home. And it's like, whoa, this needs some thought, because not everyone wants to stay working from home. Not everybody really could stay working from home and it being sustainable. And I think these sweeping statements are really dangerous. And I was talking to a local government agency in Melbourne, Australia, and they said, only 50% of our workforce will come back. And this was months ago. And I'm thinking, these are really sort of rash statements. And I was reading an article from a guy who said, he said, I'm really quite well set up at work. I've got a space, at home. I've got a space and it's operable and whatever. He said, but I miss the spontaneity of the water cooler and the coffee machine and all that. But also, the whole family are all now working from home and they're all talking about their businesses, and it's driving me crazy. So, he really wants to get back to the workplace for those sort of reasons. And there's lots of different drivers. So I think in terms of continuity and returning to whatever is going to work best for the organisation and the people within it, it just needs a lot more thought than I'm actually observing.
And I think Aprill and Rob, if we kind of, I don't want to pigeonhole you, but looking at it from the perspective of your specialisms, Rob, is there a lean angle here?
Massively, and it really dovetail into what Karen and change management is, and to jump on the going back to normal. I've been pushing the line as going back to better, using this as a change of a whole lot of learning. So lean and continuous improvement, it's all about learning, and it's about that, innovate together and create those, that quick improvement attitudes. So, and this is probably where I lean on Karen as well, around that leadership. The whole leadership styles will have to, and how we communicate will have to be adapted for a lot of people. The command and control cannot survive in this era, thankfully. So setting that true north and improvement, looking at process map, looking at, the whole organizational process, but also that whole the innovation that comes out of those coffee cooler conversations. So what is it? Innovation happens within 6 meters of co-located people. So when you get that working from home syndrome, how do you do that in a simulated environment? And so there's a lot of pros and cons that need to be thought through. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. So definitely using lean thinking, continuous improvement, absolutely, it goes along yin and yang with that change approach, really.
And Aprill, from the knowledge management perspective.
This has highlighted where knowledge management hasn't been at the forefront of people's workflows. And the uptake in teams, and people have been sort of forced into this online collaboration, which is great for my line of work. I think it's excellent that they've been forced to transform their way of working into a space that makes knowledge flow a bit easier. and it's given some people an opportunity to road test self-service, because they've had to set up remote work. Like IT teams have had to set up remote functionality for people, and they've obviously had questions about how to hit the ground running from home, and so they've had to stand up knowledge bases very quickly, and that's been effectively a minimum viable product to demonstrate some latent demand. And now they've got other teams in their organisation who want a knowledge base. So that has been really a successful outcome, in my view, of this situation. But yes, it has flummoxed a lot of people, and in organisations that are already sort of, having org restructures all the time, like, this is a massive layer on top of that normal kind of change. So I think Karen's resilience is going to be in demand.
And it is going to become more important and more of a focus for organisations as well, because if you think 2020, we're 5 months into it, and just talking about the best part of the world, Australia's had fires, you've had car manufacturing plants closed down, so huge job losses, as well as the stress of life and living. New Zealand, we've had flooding. In South Island, we've had no real quakes this year, apart from the one yesterday down near Wellington, but we've had fires in Christchurch. So it's becoming more and more something that people just need to be aware of, that you need those ways of continuing to operate.
Yeah.
And as Rob said the other day, in a moment of lucidity, it's reset and refocus.
Yeah, well, this has been a bit of a circuit breaker. This working from home has got us out into a different dynamic, and it has thrown the reset switch for some organisations.
I really hope it has, from what Rob was picking on before about the leadership, and I keep putting out on LinkedIn and stuff that go, this crisis won't, won't create leaders, it will reveal them. And I really, truly hope there's like the optimist and the pessimist, and the optimist is going, yes, this is the time for the command and control to go. You can't micromanage at a distance and all this. But then I'm reading about there's managers, I won't call them leaders, who they weren't leaders, they were still managers in the workplace, but because they had line of sight of people, they let them get on with the work. Now they haven't, they are now micromanaging more than they ever did before, and they're checking in every couple of minutes, and people are going crazy. So it's like, oh my God, and when we come out and reset and refocus, are we going to really get the true leadership that we want, or are we just going to go back to the old way that it was? And I know what the answer is. I'm hoping, where I'm going. I'm hoping it's going to fundamentally change. But I guess if people are going to say, these are the leaders that really brought us through this, these are the traits, etc., that we really need to be successful, we need that and more of. That's got to come from the top. And if those behaviours at the top are just as bad as those, it's not going to change, is it?
And just really jumping on that one is strategy and timeframes. So leading from the front and having a very flexible, I won't use the word agile, but because it will get too confusing, but having a flexible strategy. And, what's the mantra now is, a week is a month is a year. So, and just going on, James, around timeframes, New Zealand's got a general election in 120 days. So naturally, our economy gets a bit bumped and thrown around and despondent at that period. So just as we're coming out of this, and there's momentum. So I think organisations and leadership need to be very flexible and adaptable in how they approach and set that true north with organisations, respond and react to it. So I think that reset, refocus, it's not just that switch, as you said, April. That's almost going to be a monthly thing for probably the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we know with this COVID situation that, yes, schools are starting to go back here, and, some of us are starting to go back to work, those of us who were able to work from home this whole time. But, this could be a stop-start thing for a long time, and we'll have to go back. We'll have to come back in and wait another little while. So, it could be like that for however long, a year or more.
And how's that going to affect people's mental health?
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy to admit that when we in New Zealand went to level 3 and organisations were able to start operating again, and certain people went back to work, I couldn't cope with that. We'd spent 7 weeks in complete lockdown, or however many weeks it was. And then suddenly, right, people can go back to work now. I just couldn't cope with that, as Aprill will attest when I was sending her messages. Today was my first day going back into an office. And it was full, and it was great. Everybody was physically distancing themselves as much as is possible. But that was the reset I needed to get me back into that frame of mind. But if we have to go back again, I can cope with the working from home, because being a consultant it's what I do.
Yeah.
But then if we've got to keep flipping like that, it's going to be hard on a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's not just mental health; it's that whole grief process of change. Years, there are going to be some people who have lost their jobs, and they have, but those who have lost good colleagues as well. I've got a session, a Lego series play session in the morning, with a team that's gone from 5 to 3. So they're struggling now. How are we going to do the same job, create income for the organisation with the skill sets of 3 people? So not only that grief process of losing colleagues if you're still working, but the job description, as much as our strategic plan has gone out the window and down the drain. So I think this is going, underlining and in bold Karen's resilience messages. That's going to be huge. So there's not one silver bullet, right? There's all of these factors come into play, and to be a leader, it will mark some.
Yeah, I really hope, Rob, when you mentioned the resilience there, and April and James have mentioned it, that organisations really see this as a wake-up call, because they've been talking about it. I've been talking to organisations about resilience for the last 12, 18 months, and generally there's a lot of lip service. Oh, we've got a mental health officer on site that people can go to, and I'm going, that's okay, but there's still a stigma. They don't want us to be seen going to that person. You need to be talking about this. You need to be having conversations. You need tools that people can access without feeling that they're being monitored, etc. And they go, oh, well, we'll do mindfulness on a Monday. It's like, no, that's not putting it, guys, And if these organisations, it wouldn't have solved all the issues by any stretch of the imagination. But I've been reading a lot of reports that have said, people were, I can't remember the percentages, but let me just say like 60% of people were saying they were fatigued and felt they were approaching burnout, which is subjective, and that's now like 75% during so it's got worse, obviously, because people are going through change and loss and grief and all this sort of thing. If the organisation had invested in some resilience tools and support for those people, then perhaps we could have minimised some of the adverse impact that people have. We couldn't have foreseen this, but resilience isn't about foreseeing a disaster or a crisis. It's having the tools in place ready for it as and when it may happen. So coming out of this, I sort of cringe a bit, because resilience now has become a buzzword because of COVID. I get feeds, I get information, and my feeds were like leadership, but like this, organizational change like this, and resilience like this. And now resilience is massive. So everyone's talking about it, but it's about time we need to do something about it.
You need to pivot.
So, talk to me a little bit more then about where organisations should be investing time and effort now, because I think one of the things that I've observed, particularly in our industry, is that the classic response is to jump straight to the technology and, seeing hacking for coronavirus and we're going to fix it with an app, which to me just thinks, again, we're developing these solutions and then going out and looking for the problem. But what should organizations be doing now in order to help them be ready for the future?
Apart from engaging good guidance, you mean?
Yes.
Who wants to start?
I'll start. And I think it's got a lot to do with trust, which sort of already came up a little bit before. But, it's interesting where I speak to clients, knowledge management clients, who they want to have better knowledge management capability. They see the value of it. They want everybody to do it. And they're struggling for resources. They don't want to spend, they don't want to have responsibility for managing the governance across multiple knowledge bases and this and that. They're already resource constrained. But then they go ahead and create a whole lot of bottlenecks in their system, which means that they need to review and approve and this and that. And then it just melts down because they don't have that kind of time. So you have to be able to take some of those gates out by trusting that when people know what's expected of them and they have the guidelines and the guide rails, that they want to do the right thing.
As long as you've communicated what's expected of them and not just assume that people know what's expected of them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big word in front of that: reset and refocus. And I think there has to be a pause, maybe reflect, reset and refocus. Because, with a lot of people who have worked from home have gone, these are some things that have worked really well. And these people will have found ways to innovate and they will have found ways to collaborate. It's happening under the, behind the scenes. I'm pretty sure of it. Because then they will be reaching out to colleagues and having conversations. So how have they been doing that? What can we leverage? And I think what you just said, Aprill, about not wanting to spend money. There's going to be a big caution coming out of this about spending money. So this is a real time to prioritize what are going to be the best things, the biggest bang for the buck we're going to get, and where should we focus? And from my perspective, that should be really on the people side of this, not the technology. We really need to make sure that we've got a safe and resilient workforce going forward, and that we're meeting their needs, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and have those conversations now. Don't say everyone's got to work from home or everyone's got to go back to the office. We know both work. Let's work out how best to do that works for the whole organisation as a whole.
And the people as individuals, because while I've been working with people over this lockdown, because some organisations have still been working, and I've been lucky enough to be working with one or two of them. And you've got service desk people who have been able to work from home, but they couldn't continue to do it. Doing a service desk from the kitchen table or from a small table in the bedroom so that they're out of the way. They can do it, but do they want to carry on doing it? Should they carry on doing it? Not everybody is as lucky as many of us here, where we've got a room that can be the office, where we can close the door and put a sticker on the door saying, do not disturb. Some people just have to work from wherever they can. And organizations saying, well, we can save millions a year by shutting down all these offices and everybody can work from home because we've proved it can do. Need to consider, is that right for every person?
Yeah.
And that's got to be a big part of it.
Yeah. Work is an activity, not a place. Yeah. So where is that activity most effectively carried out is when we start to talk about location.
Yeah.
And I think it's keeping it simple. Just there's all the noise about options and everything going around, and we can do this. Is just going back to the basics, taking a breath, let's just keep this simple. Go back to what your organization, your business is all about, what the customer needs are. And I really treat, we talk about reset and refocus. This is the pause bit that Karen talked. And I've encouraged organizations to do this quite a lot, is pause, go back to your value stream, talk to your teams up and down that value stream in the organization. What does the customer needs will have changed insane amounts depending on your business. So let's go through that again. Empower your teams to problem solve, to make mistakes, but going back to the process, the value stream, keeping it simple, and then you can go, do we need IT to support that? Do we need new skill sets? Do we need a new structure? All of those things can then fit in. I was in a conversation on LinkedIn today where, technology is going to be, the savior and all. And I'm going, no, what? We're struggling to figure out how to work as teams. I'm working with the team tomorrow to figure out the basic processes and doing that. So, just pause, keeping it simple, start working through that flow, and keep the customer, check in. What's the customer needs now? And then work towards that and see what needs to support it.
And communicate.
We're coming towards the end of the time now, and what I'd just like to do is ask each of you for your top tip. I think, Rob, we might have just had yours, but I'm sure there's more. Top tip. It could be something to read, something to think about. For the service management people, particularly who watch this, what should they be going away and doing today? So, Aprill, come to you first.
I think close the loop on where the activity is happening right now, which is what Kaz was saying. And at the moment, I'm pretty sure a lot of IT teams are going to be working in teams. Like, that's where they're going to be escalating and collaborating. And I think what you can do right now is look at how you can close the loop on that knowledge leaking and stop it from leaking out of a Teams log and turn it into a knowledge article when you've got your answer from your engineering in your Teams chat. So that would be my top tip, is that they're all in that place right now collaborating. Turn it into your knowledge base.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Rob?
I probably went through mine, but get things visual. If you're coming back into a work environment, get it up there, do those daily stand-up meetings. We've been doing them in Lean for years and years and years. They work because they're so beneficial, and just getting that decision-making, the communication, transparent and a little bit often, because life is changing way too quickly at the moment, and you just need to do it lots often.
Thank you very much. James?
I'd probably promote that communication across the whole organisation. So within IT and service management, we often work in isolation from the rest of the organisation, whether it's by design or because nobody else wants to talk to us. But understand what the organisation is trying to do. And for the wider organisation, make sure that you're sharing your business continuity plans, because there was an awful lot of duck legs under the water happening as soon as lockdown happened here, and I'm sure it did around the world, that suddenly IT are being told, well, everybody needs to work from home and they're starting tomorrow. So just communicate and collaborate.
Thank you. And Karen?
Yeah, I like that, communicate and collaborate. That's sort of where I'm going with my tip for service management in any part of the organisation, really, because I think we need to have that stand up. We need to say what worked well, what didn't, and learn from it. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. What was it Winston Churchill said? Don't forget to take, make the best out of a crisis, or something like that. Yeah, it's an opportunity to say, what have we learned? What can we leverage? What can we take forward? What would we've done different? Just have those conversations to start with, and before we just march off into the into the future, whatever that looks like.
Be interesting to see whether every government does a lessons learned meeting after the pandemic.
I'm not even sure we're going to have the same government here. But okay, the next ITSM crowd is a special edition. It is tomorrow at 10 a.m. BST. I'm going to be joined by Matthew Burrows from Sophia and Skills TX. And we're going to be talking about the knowledge gap and how to create your digital CV. So definitely worth tuning in for that one. Huge thank you to Karen, James, Aprill and Rob for sharing their time and their experience and their knowledge today. For me, there's so many questions around this whole situation and a huge opportunity to improve things. So that reset and refocus, I think, is a really important message to get out there. So thank you all very much. Really, really appreciate it. And to everybody watching, we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM crowd. Thank you all.
Thank you.